are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Welcome back to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and just like any other time, we have another brand new show for you all today. Today, we are joined by Samantha Taylor. She is a dedicated speech language pathologist with over 17 years of experience, founder of the amazing platform company Olive Speech Therapy, PLLC, in the Empowered Parent Network. And this day, she's going to be joining us to unpack not just a story, but all the amazing things that she's doing with her own unique community. So I want to cut right to the chase and say, first, welcome Samantha to the show. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you so much for having me be a part of the show. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
I appreciate you being on. You are doing a lot of hard work. This is not easy work, and you also have a personal story that ties into what you're doing as well. So for our audience, kind of break down what you do day to day as a speech language pathologist.
Yeah, absolutely. So I own a pediatric speech therapy clinic in upstate New York. I founded it, about 5 years ago at this point, and I work with children really across the pediatric age range with a variety of needs. So my personal passion is deaf and hard of hearing children, which is tied to my personal story, but I also love working with children with autism. We work with children with Down syndrome, social pragmatic difficulties, articulation, anything that could impact your ability to communicate and communicate effectively, we work with each and every day.
There's a lot of resources out there. So when you look at your practice, what makes your brand a little bit unique compared to what's available out there in the market?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are so many incredible practices out there, but I think the biggest thing that sets us apart is I know what it's like to be the parent, not just the professional. I was a parent first before I looked into this field and began my journey in this field. So I know what it's like to feel overwhelmed, to feel scared, to feel helpless and hopeless and frustrated. So I bring that to each and every session that I have, each and every connection I have, because I know what it's like to feel like that. And I know how overwhelming it can be. So I always want my parents to feel safe. I always want to empower my parents to feel safe and confident so that they can advocate for their children. Because at the end of the day, I always remind my families, I'm with your child maybe 30 to 60 minutes a week. In the grand scheme of things, that's not much. Where the real magic happens is at home with their parents.
And speaking of the home, you, like you said, you have a personal story with your son. You have a deaf son. Mm-hmm. When you look at the challenges that you had to face as a mother yourself, how has that not just inspired how you are doing your advocacy work, but also create these systems that actually bring solutions?
Yeah, so he changed my entire world by being born. Real quick backstory. I was 20 years old when I got pregnant. I was actually in my senior year of my communications degree, so I wanted to be a journalist. I was so excited about journalism and had my undergrad surprise. So not only was I not quite prepared to be a mom, I wasn't quite prepared for what we were going to find out when he was 4 months old. So when he was 4 months old, we found out that he was profoundly deaf. We have no family history. I've never had even met a deaf person before, so my whole world changed in that moment. And I would be lying if I said I wasn't scared, I wasn't upset. There was definitely a grieving process, but I knew I wasn't doing anyone any favors by staying in that space. I knew I needed to figure it out. So through different agencies, things like that, different connections I had, I began learning everything I could about it. If there wasn't information that was readily available, I did those deep dives, which led me to the field of speech language pathology. He started receiving speech around, I think he was about 6 months old, and I was really surprised because I had never heard of it, but also I was like, you get paid to play with kids? I need to know more about this. So went back to grad school, and in that, grad school is phenomenal. They teach you all of the foundational skills that you need to know, but you do lose that human aspect of it. You do lose that. You don't have a ton of experience on how to talk with parents, how to navigate those conversations, and to help ease them through them. So that's where I kind of took my background in speech language pathology, but also wanted to tie it with my personal connection to be as impactful as I could for families.
Once again, listen to I Am Refocused Radio and watching us online, talking to our special guest today, Samantha Taylor. Go to her two websites. She has oliveSpeechTherapy.org and EmpoweredParentNetwork.org. You can check out those more in detail in our show notes. But my next question is, we said it earlier, you wanted to be in communications, and quite frankly, that has never left you. I think you're doing a great job in living that purpose and in that light. Life throws us curveballs sometimes, and we have to make adjustments along the way. So my next question for you is, what's some of the most common misconceptions about speech therapy and communication disorders that you try to work out with your new clients?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I think we come across is that there's something wrong with these children and that we're trying to fix them or change them. And really, that's not our purpose here at all. Our purpose is to facilitate communication so they can advocate, they can communicate, they can connect with friends and families, they can share their interests. So we are not here to fix any child by any means. We're here to give them access to share who they are with the world around them.
And tell us a little bit about the organization Empowered Parent Network, because that's a great resource. What gap were you trying to fill there, and how is it growing right now?
Yeah, so I really started that out. I previously worked in a school district. It was a great school district. But with that being said, I saw lots of gaps, a lot of professional jargon, a lot of intimidating professionals, a lot of meetings where parents left, again, feeling hopeless, helpless, confused. And working for the school district, I was the professional at the table. I wasn't allowed to be mom. I was the professional. So with starting my own practice, with kind of stepping out on my own, I had the autonomy to look at this from both sides of the table. I could look at it as the professional and as the mom. And so that's where Empowered Parent Network came out of, because I knew what it's like to be in those meetings, but I also watched so many parents leave those meetings feeling just so disheartened. So really, I wanted to create a space for parents to feel that confidence, to get empowered. So it's about not only taking a look at who you are as a parent, enhancing your communication in those meetings, increasing your presence at those meetings, but it's also tactical too, right? Learning all the educational laws, learning where the resources are, learning how to connect with the right people, and learning how to show up in those meetings, because we want to make sure that what we say is being heard and being valued too. So really, with the Empowered Parent Network, it is a space to learn all those skills. But lastly, I really want to include communication or community in everything I do too, because as a parent of a child with unique needs, I know how isolating it can be. I know how you can feel like you're on an island of one, because chances are you're surrounded by people who have never experienced this before. They don't know what it's like to live a day of your life. They don't know what it's like to raise a child with needs such as your own. And so I think it's really important to give parents the opportunity to connect with other parents who maybe don't have the exact same situation, because every situation is unique, but gives them a place with parents that know what it's like. You know what it's like to love your child so ferociously, but also know what it's like to not want to get out of bed because you're so overwhelmed and so sad and so frustrated.
And speaking of isolation, for those who are listening to us already and watching us online and they're a parent, we all know time is limited and resources can be limited as well. How do you help guide them to kind of ease that frustration and emotions, because they're real and they're raw?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest things is giving parents the space to speak those truths without judgment, without holding it against them, because especially in this day and age, I think it's wonderful what we have in terms of access to information, especially through social media. But I also think it can be very damaging, because we see parents living the perfect lives. Everything's going smoothly. There's nothing to be frustrated about. We're all grateful all the time. Everything is rainbow and sunshine. And sometimes we even see that with families with different channels with children with unique needs. So I think the biggest thing is giving parents that space where there isn't that judgment, where they can say, you know what, today sucked. It was really tough, without feeling like they're failing, without feeling like there's something wrong with them because it's hard for them. I think it can be really empowering just taking that first step to say, you know what, everything isn't perfect and that's okay.
You received award, the Trailblazer Award in 2025. What does that recognition mean to you personally, especially as someone who has a personal story tied to what you're doing?
Yeah, that was huge for me. I was so appreciative to not only be nominated for that award, but also be the recipient. And for me, it represented so much because I lovingly describe myself as a recovering people pleaser. So I was so used to coloring within the lines, doing exactly as I was told or expected to do. So for me to be considered a trailblazer was huge because that meant I was stepping outside of my box. I was pushing boundaries. I was challenging the kind of status quo to make a positive impact on the community. And my hope is to kind of expand that, not only within myself, but within other people, to see that, oh, wait, she could do that. I can do that too. In whatever way that works, whether it's with a business, whether it's with your children, whether it's how you show up in your relationships.
And speaking of expansion, there are still, real life fears. When you think about healthcare, what are some barriers, if you will, that families are still facing currently that you try to help them navigate?
Yeah. So with having a private practice, insurance is one of the biggest things that we see that can be a barrier. So I know the healthcare system in the United States is a little bit messy to begin with, and very intricate, and it can be really frustrating because we have children with some very significant needs that really do impact their quality of life in their day-to-day navigation. And with how insurance is currently set up, and this isn't all insurance by any means, I want to make sure that I'm clear, that's not a blanket statement, but with some of the situations that we've seen, there has been denial there, and there has been limited access to receive those services. And a lot of these families, they're so tapped out, not only emotionally, but also financially, because these services, they do add up. And a lot of the children we work with, that they don't just receive speech. They also have other maybe complex medical needs. They're having lots of medical appointments. They're working with physical therapists, occupational therapists. So that adds up. And sometimes insurance will approve for one and not the others, or they'll put a cap on it, but it's supposed to be shared across all of these different fields, that it can become really frustrating really easily. So with that, there are great programs. We're in New York State, so we have different grants, things like that. I'm sure they do nationwide, but I'm just familiar with New York State that do help alleviate that. So we do work with families to help them with kind of the application process for some of those, because unfortunately they can still be a little clunky, a little hard to navigate, but there thankfully are some things available. So that's one thing. I never want there to be a barrier to services. Obviously, I have employees I have to pay as well, so that is a thing to be considered. But that is one of the biggest frustrations that we navigate. But we, like I said, we do try to help families with that.
You all watching, listening, need to navigate to Samantha's websites, and those are, again, olivespeechtherapy.org and empoweredparentnetwork.org. We are speaking to her this morning. It's going to be released later on radio. So once again, make sure you go to IamRefocusRadio.com. If you miss any of this and you find this anywhere you find a podcast, like I always say, share it with one person. That's my only homework assignment for our viewers and listeners. And appreciate you tuning in. Now, my next question is, how important is early intervention? Because when it comes to any delays in a child's communication, that is something that we should really pay attention to.
Yeah, I am not a proponent of wait and see. So that is a phrase that's used a lot by pediatricians, well-meaningly, because obviously children all grow at their own rate. They all reach milestones at their own rate. So I do know that phrase is kind of used to offer some comfort. But as a mother of a child with unique needs, but also a speech language pathologist, I always guide families. If there's even a bit of doubt or some questioning, trust that parent instinct, trust that gut, because it's communicating something. It doesn't mean anything's wrong by any means, but it means that something is there that's worth exploring. So that could be something as simple as reaching out to your pediatrician to request an evaluation, and they can refer you to speech language pathologists in your area, or you can reach out to private practices in your area to see if they can do that evaluation. Again, and depending on insurance, you may have prior authorizations, all of those things that they'll be able to help you navigate. But with that, just share your concerns. And if an evaluation is warranted, then you have baseline data. They may be right where they need to be, but you have something to compare against. So if in 6 months and 12 months you're not seeing the progress that you're hoping to see, then you can go through the process again, and then you can compare against to see, okay, growth is happening, or you know what, they really have plateaued. Maybe speech therapy is warranted. Because you never want to lose time. And this, I want to qualify this by saying, if you are a parent that did wait and now you're concerned you waited too long, it is totally okay. You are doing exactly as you should, especially by kind of questioning it now and looking into it now, but you did not do anything wrong by waiting. You are totally fine. And your child will still thrive and learn skills and be able to communicate. So yeah, that is probably my biggest piece of advice, is trust that parent gut.
And trusting that gut, you just keep having me segue perfectly into new questions. We know that you're based outside of San Antonio, and even though on the radio we have a lot of listeners that are listening to this in San Antonio area in Texas, you still have a lot of great work that you're doing with your network. So when it comes to community and how it supports these families, for our listeners who might be around the nation as well, what's some great ways that they can tap into these communities that are available out there?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is really through social media. That's such a blessing in 2026. Look for, depending on what your kind of need is, if you're looking for community, I'm a great resource, reach out to me. But also there are different parent groups. And I always say kind of vet them, because sometimes you want to make sure it's the right vibe that you're looking for, because some are just a place to vent and dump, and that might be what you need, so that might be perfect. And some are more action oriented. So really take a look at it, see if it's a fit for you, for what you're looking for. Connect with your local school district too. They should have resources as well to connect you with different organizations, with different parent groups, things like that. Reach out to your pediatrician, any local providers. They should be able to connect you, depending on kind of your need. I know there's an amazing school for the deaf down in Texas. So, like I mentioned, that's kind of my niche. I love working with all children, but deaf and hard of hearing children are very underrepresented in the American culture right now. So, if you are a parent of a deaf and hard of hearing child, reach out to me for sure. I'm highly, highly connected in that world across the United States.
We live in a time where our calendar seems to fill up faster than anything else. When you balance, or you can change the words if you want to, I'll throw it to you. When you look at your professional life, calendar demands, and also working with your family at home, how do you keep yourself above water and stay motivated to take care of business, both personally and professionally?
Great question. I will be transparent and say that's still something I'm navigating and trying to figure out. But the biggest thing that has helped me is setting boundaries, especially as a business owner who has so many different hats that I wear. It's very easy to blur private time, personal time, and business time. So especially when you're working from home, because it can be really difficult to have a beginning time and an ending time. So really set setting firm boundaries. My son is now a junior. He's going to be a senior soon. So I know my time is very limited with him living in the house. So that has been one of the biggest reminders to me that I really needed to figure this out so that I can maximize my time with him. And I also have an 11-year-old, so he's kind of reaping the benefits of me figuring this out now too by setting those boundaries. So one of my big things is I jam pack any client time into 3 days a week. And the other 4 days, I am home, I am available, I am present. But I also want to say it is important for my boys to see me as a working mom or as just a working parent in general. I want them to see what it's like to be a business owner, to see what it's like to put in hard work, but then also see the benefit of that. So there are definitely days where it is a bit frustrating or it's a bit overwhelming. And I want them to see that too, because nothing is perfect. There are highs and lows. There are tough moments. There are days where it's all going smoothly. And I want to make sure that they're seeing me, obviously as a mother, but I also want them to see me as a contributing member of society, because I really think our children are learning from us by observing us each and every day.
When you think about the future and education, when you look at the education systems, what are some changes that you would like to see with the educational systems and leaders in the United States? How you hope they will help these families who are concerned about it?
This might be a really silly, simple answer, but I really think it comes down to treating people as people. I feel like in our society right now are so polarizing that anyone who doesn't believe as us or anyone that doesn't agree with us are the enemy, instead of seeing like, oh, they're human too. They have reasons, they have experience, they have perspectives that may have caused them to believe that way. And so I think that also happens in our school systems. It can become a little polarizing with the school administration team and the parents, where depending on the situation, they're almost on opposite ends, kind of battling each other. And we lose sight that they're people too. They have experience too. They have perspective too. So that's one of the biggest things I would love to see change, is just humanizing each other and trying to understand where they're coming from. Remain curious, because we're so quick to respond, but we really hesitate to take a moment to ask questions to try to better understand. We get so reactive, and it's not doing anyone any favors. So again, maybe a silly answer, but I think that would be one of the biggest things that would change so many things and would help alleviate so many issues across the board.
Listen, I'm Refocused Radio and watching us online, talking to our special guest today, Samantha Taylor, and go to her two websites, olivespeechtherapy.org and empoweredparentnetwork.org. When you look at families right now who will be listening to this and watching us online, maybe they feel like, man, this situation I'm in right now, I need some additional resources. What's the best first step that I can take? What would you advise them to do?
Yeah, I would say, especially if it's pertaining to their child, if they have concerns about any challenges they may have, and this spans past speech, that whether it's physical, mental, emotional, whatever it might be. If they're under the age of 3, your best bet is typically the pediatrician, because they can refer you to early intervention, and that is a great program nationwide that provides evaluations, but also different services that are paid for. In New York State, I believe this is nationwide, but I can only speak to New York State. It is paid for by the county, so there's no cost to families whatsoever. If your child is school age, and school age meaning any age 3 and up, then I would guide you to reach out to your local school district and inquire about what they may have in terms of services. So there are different avenues you can take, and one is through CSE or CPSE. So CSE is the Committee on Special Education, and CPSE is the Committee on Preschool Special Education. That is also free for families, and that is a place where families can get those deep dives, get those evaluations, get individualized education plans if your child qualifies, that lays out any services they might get, any specialized programs they might get, any accommodations they might need to succeed in the classroom. So reach out to your local school districts, reach out to your pediatrician. Talk to people that you come across to in the community too. Sometimes they have the best information, even if it's someone that you are maybe sitting with at a playground or whatever it might be. But in terms of really quick, easy places, I would say pediatricians and school districts might be the best place. And again, also online, if you want to reach out to me, I will gladly guide you. Even if I'm not the most appropriate fit, I will find that person for you.
And last quick question before we wrap up is looking ahead. When you look at the growth of Olive Speech Therapy and the Empowered Parent Network, what are a few goals or a goal that you're hoping to reach in the next few years?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things is I just want to continue my outreach. Right now I'm focusing more locally in New York State, but I'm trying to increase my outreach nationwide.
With your host, Shamaya Reed.
Really help
this show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus.
So I want to kind of
here's your host,
spread
Shamaya
that out. In terms of the actual speech therapy practice, my hope is to get a second location. We have grown so quickly over the past 5 years because there's such a strong need that we went from, I was a solo entrepreneur in 2021 to now we have a team of 10. So my hope is just to continue to expand that, hopefully branching out of New York State at one point too, because we have such a wonderful team. And I know I would love to share them with the greater United States.
Once again, listen on Refocused Radio. Watch us online. So that kind of fun. Watching us online. And like I always want to say to our guest, Samantha, thank you for your time.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.